started.
Massimo Dutti from Spain. Let's see, how about d4? It's been e4 knight f3 recently. I think I played Massimo Dutti recently. I'll check and see if see if that's made it. I lost some games because of recording errors. The Dutch. I think that's an interesting way to play f5. So g3 slows down further advances with the pawn. And then I'm just going to play for early kingside castling here.
Check.
With a solid pawn structure on the queen side and open line for my bishop, should be okay. So if I play bishop to g5 and he attacks it with h6, then I should retreat or trade. I can't go back here because the bishop gets trapped on h4. So it probably only makes sense to do that if I want to trade. But it does, trading that bishop has some advantages. He's got quite a grip on these light squares here, and getting rid of that knight could help me a little bit. Of course, I'm not going to trade if he doesn't force me to. Let's develop this knight. Maybe knight to c4, hitting his dark squared bishop. And see where that goes. He doesn't have to move it, it's defended. He could just wait and see if I trade it. Yeah, it's interesting. So he's ignoring that. He's going to let me trade it. So I could gain a tempo by kicking the bishop first and then trading it. And I think I will. If I trade first and then kick the bishop, or knight, because there'd be a trade, there'd be a knight there, the knight could drop into this c4 square. But if I trade first and then take, then it messes up his pawns over here. And I've gained a little space on the queen side. So, was that a worthwhile transaction? I don't know. I have a good light squared bishop, right? So maybe I want to clamp down on e4 here. I don't know. Maybe I just want to harass his knight. So I'm thinking of the move a4 and b5. And so I'm putting the rook here so that if there's a trade, I don't lose that rook. So he plays b5 immediately. Stops my idea. Well, I can still play a4. It undoubles his pawns, but creates a little something, creates a target for me. If he doesn't take, I will take and I'll have a target
Server
on
announcement.
b5. I can play queen d3, for example, to hit it. The reason why it'd be nice to force this knight to move is then I could plop a knight in on e5 there. It looks like a good square for the knight. And I don't know if I'll be able to accomplish that, but so he's got a good knight there, and he's attacking my bishop. Okay, so let's not get carried away here. And he's hitting this. Yes, indeed. Okay, so my bishop is defended. What I need to do is defend the c-pawn. And I have to make sure other squares are covered. The knight could drop into d2 there, but that's covered by the knight. So I am kind of threatening the move b5 here, because if he takes, I'm going to take his rook. So he has to move the knight then. And then I can play my knight here, but I would have to move my bishop first. I'm surprised if he wanted to get rid of my bishop, he didn't just play h6. Okay, what is black's plan here? I could play b5, hitting my queen. Okay, decided to take the bishop here. Just spending time to think about it. Good choice, probably. Get rid of the bishop while you can. So now my knight's coming back here. He can expand on the king side. I'm going to try and play this move b5 and get a knight to the square d5, e5. And also that opens up this diagonal for my light squared bishop, which is a good piece. He has a bad bishop in this pawn structure, so I want to try and clamp down on his pawns, keep that bishop bad, and also move his knight to a worse square. So yeah, so once again he plays b5 before I do. Good choice. Good choice. So how else can I harass that knight? Okay, well, let's see. What's a good square for my queen? That's really the question here. Do I want to go to b3, c2, or d1? Maybe b3. It's on this diagonal with his queen, with his king. So this pawn is now pinned. So this pawn is loose on f5. Well, it's defended by his rook, so it's not that loose. But maybe I can now consider pushing d5. And once again, it's at a time when he can't really, he can take. He can't push the pawn because I'll grab his knight. So this will at least inflict some damage on his central pawns here. It does expose my pawn, my e-pawn, but I take with check, so I'll have one move at least to respond to things. So pawn takes, queen takes, check. He blocks the check or moves the king, and then I'll play maybe e3 to defend that pawn. Just moved the knight. That's really interesting. Well, it defends. Moving the knight defends this e3 square, e6 rather. Well, let's put that knight on e5 while we can. Looks like a good square for it. Maybe I can play f4 here to support the knight there. The knight may eventually threaten to come into g6. It also hits f7. It just hits a bunch of sensitive squares in black's camp there. I do not have a specific plan for it at this point. So the bishop went there, attacking this pawn. Well, this pawn is well defended, so pawn takes, bishop takes, queen takes is all good. But if I play c4, it'll open up another file for me. It'll also open up a file for him. c4, pawn takes c4, rook or knight takes, maybe rook takes, defending the pawn, and then I can double on the c file. I think that is going to be more useful to me than the b file is to him. But he has liberated his knight, his bishop. He's liberated his bishop, which is a good score for him. And I just realized if I take with the rook, he can grab this pawn, which means I need to take with the queen. Although I am getting a battery. I was just thinking it'd be better to have the rooks doubled on the c file than rook and queen. It's something though. So I guess let's see. Can I win the a pawn? Here's an idea. pawn takes, knight takes, bishop takes, rook takes, queen takes. So pawn takes, queen takes, queen takes, knight takes. That's not so impressive. But if he plays it that way, is there a pawn hanging sometime? The pawn on what's this? D7. Pawn on D7 would be hanging. Perhaps. No, maybe not. Okay, but he played something different. He played to attack my knight. So the knight could go into C6. But if it does that, then he gets a very strong center by, say, knight c6, knight takes, pawn takes, and the bishop goes to c8, so only move. Or maybe rook c8 to pin the pawn. So knight here, bishop takes, pawn takes, rook or bishop to c8. And then he's got these three pawns in the center. But I have this advanced protected passed pawn. Well, it's not protected exactly, but it looks like it ought to be a strength. So he'll have three pawns in the center, and I'll only have these two, and they'll be advanced. So, and I'll have this wing pawn, which is very advanced. And I have a bit of a restraint on his center with the pin on the E pawn. And of course, if he takes the pawn, it's bishop takes here with check. This probably looks good to me. It splits up his pawns, and also, once again, gives me time to save the E pawn. And if he does nothing, well, I'll take the rook if he does nothing. He could, that's what he can do. He could pin my knight with his rook. Okay, but he didn't play that. Have to look at that in the post-mortem, see if that was a good move. Okay, pawn takes, and now the bishop c8 or rook c8 is what I'm expecting, because I've got three defenders of the pawn, and he's only got two attackers. I guess I could consider pushing to c7 in any case. And now the knight is gone. This pawn on e6 only has one defender, which is the queen. Okay, he hits the queen first. Not a bad idea. Can I sack the bishop? Bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, check. And then after that I grab his bishop, right? So this is winning material. It's those checks that often are the seeds of tactical. I was about to borrow a phrase from Dan Heisman, the seeds of tactical destruction, but he meant something different. He meant a certain geometric alignment. Well, the alignment of the queen and the king on the same diagonal, I think he would regard that as a seed of tactical destruction. So, but I was just thinking checks in general.
Check. They
cause havoc from a tactical point of view because they force your opponent to move when he wants to save the bishop, and just takes away his chance to save the bishop. Now my queen's not defended, so I have to
check.
Trade queens. But at the end of all this, I pick up the bishop. So I sack the bishop for a couple of pawns, and then I win the bishop back. And he can win this pawn. So have I really won anything? That's the question. Maybe we just simplified to a drawn position. I have an extra pawn over here. He has an extra pawn over here. And I'm going to lose this one. So I should attack his pawn. Okay, he can trade, and after the trade, I can grab his pawn. He can save his pawn by playing rook b6. I take, he takes, and then this pawn is safe. I can push ahead, but Let's see, can I do anything? I can push ahead. He takes, I take, he takes, and then I can get behind the pawn, which would make it difficult for him to advance the pawn. That's probably the best. You can check and get in front of the pawn.
Check.
Yep, I missed that idea. Okay, so I need to keep my king over here. Probably it's good to keep his king out of the away from the pawn. He can march this pawn all the way down, and I can sit over here on the king side and maybe try and do something with my pawns. But I think this should be drawn at this point. But we will let it play out. If he lets me, I'm going to push this pawn all the way up to h4. Yeah, he's going to stop it. Not a bad choice. But now his king is completely cut off. So my rook needs to stay here. Let's see if I could move I can move my king here, because if he checks me, I can just take his rook. I can take these pawns. Okay, so let's think about this. King to f3, pawn to g4, king to f4, rook here, rook takes. Yeah, because when I take the rook, I defend the f-pawn. So this is okay. King f3, pawn to g4, king to f4. So, okay, let's try this. If I push this pawn, and he pushes and I take, then he's got rook here, check. So I have to stay over here on the king side. I can't really do a whole lot that's active. Anytime I push the pawn, he takes, I take back. It puts my king in a position where it's exposed, and the check gives him time. I move my king, and then he queens, so he ends up a rook up. So I can't ever do that. So that means I can't push my pawns. So that's I'll move first and offer a draw.
Draw offered. Game drawn.
Okay, interesting game. I'm going to upload this and do a postmortem as usual. See you guys later. Bye.